Going to speak first.
So good morning, everybody, and welcome. We have our guest here, Rajan Nazran, and our Vice President of NWAMI International Malta, Conway Wigg. Today, we will be discussing an upcoming event at the House of Commons about the Commonwealth. Where do we take it from here? Where do we go from here? We want to learn a little bit more about the relevance to us as a community and where the challenges lie. And we want also to learn a little bit about the debate that will be taking place in the panel at the House of Commons, which our dear guest and friend Rajan Nazran will be kindly leading. And I will be having the honor also to take part and be speaking and take part of the panel as a discussion. So Conway and Rajan, please take it away.
Thank you, Gabby, for that introduction. Yes, Rajan. I think maybe we could start. If you could just give us a brief outline of what the event is about that's happening at the House of Commons, and some idea of what you're expecting out of that event.
Good questions. Okay, so first and foremost, it's a privilege to be on your panel, on your interview process. I think Malta is a home away from home for not just for me, but for a plethora of different multicultural societies. I think from the Indian point of view, it holds a very special place because it's where a lot of Indian soldiers were kept during the World War. So it's that transit space. And from there, now you have your own cricket league in Valletta. I think it just shows how the world comes around. The event that's going to be taking place in May is a very strong opportunity in the House of Commons to talk about this function called the Commonwealth, and to not speak about it in a sense of saying great adoration, that we're all happy and unique and privileged to be part of it, but really question the very threads of what stitches it together, and to say what its relevance may look like at this point in time and where does it lead to in the future. The exciting thing about that discussion is that it's worlds away from the typical discussions that take place within Malta at this moment in time, where you had all the Commonwealth heads coming together, or we have the big CHOGM taking place later on in the year, where people are going to be voting who the next Commonwealth Secretariat is. I believe what's happening in the Commonwealth, the discussion about the Commonwealth at the House of Commons, is vital because it talks from the personality perspective, the average person on the street, who the Commonwealth says belongs to this elite club. And that is miles away from what's normally been spoken about. Mm-hmm. The debate as such is really a meeting of ideas. It's saying from different perspectives, from law, for example, through to people's lived experiences in different countries, about not only what the challenges are, but also how those challenges are uniquely positioned for them in the industries that they now work in. Again, it provides a different layer because it's not just from a country perspective, i.e. a head of state or a person who's got a representation for government there, but it's coming down from a plethora of different perspectives. Mm-hmm. Conway, we've never seen that happen before, which is in itself strange, isn't it?
And Malta in itself, I mean, is actually the situation in a nutshell, because Commonwealth consists of 54 member states, and when you see the migration population at the moment, the migrant population in Malta, we have South Asia, we have the Sub-Saharan Africans, we have Eastern Europeans, we have from South Africa. Our diversity, Malta's diversity, is highly fluid, highly diversified, highly complex, and there is the two-way process of migrant integration, one from the migrant side, one from the people side, and one from the host side. So this is very much related also to what the Commonwealth basically is facing at the moment. It's very much mirrored and reflected. That is what's happening in Malta now, and in such a small territory as well. So, I mean, as a part of the Commonwealth, to look into this issue and how to deal with issue. I know, Rajan, you are in your work, you're dealing very much with humanness and what it means to be human in our time. And you often relate to, is it the Commonwealth or is it Commonwealth? You know, so these are the factors as well you addressed. So what would you hear from us speakers, as a matter of fact, when you will address certain issues? What are the main points you would be homing in about?
That's a really good question. I'm going to answer that in almost a cheap getaway clause because I don't want to put too much pressure on my own perspectives on the panel. What I hope to come from the panel discussion is a very open, authentic discussion about challenges. I don't want us to be looking back at the Commonwealth and clapping hands and raising flags and saying how wild and wonderful this is. But I want us to be very critical about how do we improve it so people's lives are impacted. And that's what I hope as a takeaway from this. What I also hope that it provides the average listener an understanding and a deeper perspective of what the Commonwealth should mean. What you said earlier is something I truly believe in. Is the Commonwealth people who are common, or is it people who are wealthy? And there's a whole thing lack a common sense. And it's a play on words, but I think it's a very pivotal structure because along my own travels, I've had the privilege to meet with many heads of states, ministers, and members of every echelon of society right the way across this fabricated idea of the Commonwealth. And I can assure you, Maria and Conway, the majority of people whose names are used under this 2 billion plus family are saying that they're part of the Commonwealth, part of this common trading unit, common law, all of that. They've got no idea what the Commonwealth means. And the vast majority of heads of states are questioning, well, why am I paying money in to this elite member club? Because I don't know where it leads to. And I'm going to add on one more point before I get into your Maltese Inquisition as such. But there's also another perspective here where we're talking about the movement of people, which is also looking at refugees. And least we forget, Rwanda is part of the Commonwealth. So there's also that very big question that has to be spoken about in every place that is important, which includes the House of Commons, the seat of power in the UK, to say, well, when we look at immigration policies, when we have a look at the movement of people, when we stitch together people of the Commonwealth, why is it then that not all are equal? Because we deem it necessary then to say, well, you're part of the Commonwealth, and we've got people that have been guests and they've been brought into the UK, but do you know what? You're not good enough for us, so you can't be part of our Commonwealth, so let me send you off to another Commonwealth nation. Yeah. So there's a lot to be questioned here. Are we all born equal, or as the good book says, are some a bit more equal than others?
Yeah, definitely. That's a good point. Yeah, and I think that thing about relevance, I think the fact that that the presence of the Commonwealth, you said people don't know what it means. I mean, I think that's from a Maltese perspective, I think the average person, on the street in Malta has no idea what the Commonwealth is or what it's for, because it's not present, it's not active in the things that matter. And this issue of, and in a sense, it's a missed opportunity, because the Commonwealth, because of its experience in dealing with all these, different cultures and different backgrounds and what have you, that's its purpose really, is to stitch this world together. And it's not, it's not really present in that debate that matters to people out there in the, on the street. So, I think there is still an opportunity, but so far a missed opportunity for the Commonwealth to be a really positive contributor to this process of integration and helping the world manage this movement of people, which isn't going to stop regardless of how many laws and
And there's something added on to that, Conway, because it's also saying, yeah, the Commonwealth has had this rich experience of dealing with this tapestry of people, but the leaders within the Commonwealth have not had the lived experience of being able to actualize that in. And here's where the problem is. Just because an idea is old and longing, it's almost diplomacy, is almost tradition, is the art of diplomacy of the dead. The same thing applies to the Commonwealth. Just because it's been around for X amount of years, so many decades, that doesn't transpond itself into the lived experience of his leadership. These people don't know what the challenges are. They don't understand what the problems are faced by those in Kenya or the historical relevance of the Mau Mau uprising, or through to the issues being faced by present-day Bangladesh, or the impact that's happening in Guyana through the recent oil finds and this conflict with Venezuela. So now we got leadership that have come in, and as we always say, you know, we place a great reliance on the integrity of those who choose to lead. But time and time again, we've seen that integrity eroded from scandal after scandal after scandal. So then we also have to question, are the leadership that is based around the Commonwealth fit enough to lead what this thing should truly be? And how on earth do we define this mythical beast? Because for some, the Commonwealth has these wonderful ideas, and it can be a champion of change and champion of good. But for others, it really has been another form of soft diplomacy that has almost eradicated what multiculturalism should be.
Absolutely.
We've stripped back the ideas that govern law from the Ubuntu era through to what we now see deemed as appropriate and respectable. We've stripped back the use of languages or the ideas of religion or the ideas of autonomy, all in the name of something that happened before. And when we look at the present day function, we've seen people in countries struggling with their national identities again, but yet we're using this loose definitions in the Commonwealth. Britain's suffering right now. Malta's obviously going through his own incarnation. So I think what I'm looking forward to, and I hope, and I don't want to give the commentators curse in any way, is that we actually have this robust conversation that is all too not common about what this thing is, the Commonwealth. And I think it's about time that we have that. Because if we don't have it now, it's never going to be had. And now the stakes are higher than ever before because we're dealing with rapid changes in environmental impact, changing with rapid change when it comes to legalities, rapid changes with people movement, inequalities, corruption. Man, if we don't get our act together, God knows what's going to happen in the next 10 years.
Yeah. So we are very much looking forward to this live event, to the in-person event at the House of Commons. And we are really very grateful to the Right Honorable David Jones. His office is the host of this event, who kindly helped us to organize, to made it possible that this event can take place at the House of Commons, as you said, which stands symbolically as well for the people's representations, and to bring more awareness about the needs, about the potential, the challenges and the needs which are within the peoples of the Commonwealth as well. So
and it's within, Maria, to add on to that, is within the lived experience of the people within the Commonwealth.
Absolutely.
And that's the most important part, because you know, as much as we can stand and parade here in London or anywhere else, or you have whichever version of Patricia Scotland that we see on the TV, the fact is people are suffering. We are seeing now in the UK more food banks than ever before. We're members of the Commonwealth. In India, we're seeing rises of changes that are challenging our ideas and perception of what democracy should be. Right the way across the globe, the average person's life has not improved. Absolutely. If anything, it's gone far worse. And those conversations, those issues, you know, is deafening from the silence from the international community. Nobody's standing up. Yet we still stand in parade over an idea of the Commonwealth. Don't get me wrong, this is not going to be a dismantling of the Commonwealth ideas in any sense, but what I see it as being is a championing of real change that is empowered by the people movement. Because what is the point of revolution if it's not for all? And I think the benefit of that statement is that it is from Napoleon, and Napoleon's place, I think his bedroom is actually in Valletta somewhere. I think that is your Minister of Foreign Affairs. Yeah. And with his statue, there's a very eerie meeting that I had there, Conway. I have to say, I felt like I was eavesdropping in somebody's personal space. But these ideas of the Commonwealth can be absolutely instrumental, because also what I believe it does, it changes the way that we look at how identity is formed. It changes the way that we look at how nations are. And it goes beyond just the arbitrary factor of same language, same laws, same people, and great, let's work together. But if we really understand it, it really looks at a lived history amongst people and saying, how is that history now evolving and changing?
Yes, when we look at history, we have to see, as our fellow speaker who will be joining us at the event, says, rightly so, writes and says, the Commonwealth was born out of the ashes of the British Empire. And how has it evolved? Are we still moving in the past, or are we looking forward as well? As the theme of this event rightly so says, where do we take it from here?
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm looking very much forward to that. And I'm very pleased also that this will be another joint collaboration between NWAMI UK and NWAMI International Malta, because we are the European sister organization to NWAMI UK, and we sort of combine the European with the Commonwealth problematic. And NWAMI in itself stands for Networking for World Awareness of Multicultural Integration. And here is what we have in common, as a matter of fact. You're exploring what it means, the multicultural integration issues beyond, within the communities, beyond the bigger, the administrative, the legal framework, the governing framework, but going into peoples and societies. And my colleague here, our Vice President Conway, his pet subject is history. And being from the media and exploring, Conway, can you share a little bit at the end how you link it together from your perspective?
Well, I think, I mean, I think human beings, right, the things that motivate human beings, largely stay the same throughout history. I think if you read diaries from Roman times, you get to see similar frustrations with the world around them about, things that challenge us have largely remained the same despite technology and what have you. It's about, how am I going to make my life better? How am I going to cope with the challenges that are facing my society? And so, in a sense, there's a lot of rhymes to history. It doesn't repeat itself, but there are a lot of sort of rhymes to it. And I think even with media, when you're communicating, I think it's important to understand, background and context and the way people kind of have always reacted to certain things, and try to remove yourself from the emotion of the day, and actually take a sort of a broader view of things and understand them in their proper context. And I think that's, obviously that's something that a lot of people don't do. And I think it's also important when you're debating these big issues like migration and Commonwealth and how societies are going to stitch together. I think it's important to have a sense of how humans behave, because history is conditioned by how humans behave, and that largely remains the same. So, that I think that helps you then to kind of think through what things can be done that work, and what things, are just going to be talk, without really actually delivering anything.
I think that's powerful. I like that idea. If we just focus on the lived experience of people, that gives us an idea of what it is to be human on a global scale. But then it gives us an idea of where our species are heading as well. I know that sounds like a very lofty statement, and I don't mean in any way that is up there with the fairies, but it's a sense of saying, well, we have to look at the bigger picture, because now we are more connected than ever before. If you sneeze in China, the whole world catches a flu, or far worse. And that's the reality of the world in which we live. So then the Commonwealth can play a very strong part in that. And I like what Conway's saying as well, because we often do look at the history of the Commonwealth, and we do look at the ashes of imperialism and all of that British Empire. But then least do we forget, before the British Empire, there was another empire. Prior to that, there was another empire. That's just in human nature. There's something deeply flawed in the way that we look at
empires today.
There is, absolutely. That's it. And it's going to continue even in 500 years, when this podcast has turned into a virtual reality summit of sorts. The reality is there's always going to be that within human nature. But at this moment in time, where the Commonwealth, in my mind, has become more of a business function, in a way of it's self-serving, the money that comes in pays for its staff. Very small percentage of it goes towards actual real change on the ground. So then now's the time for us to be asking these questions. Where do we go from here? Because if you are going to use a people movement for your own bread, so to speak, well, then the people should also have a slice of that bread. We should also feel what that is. And through our own identities and national understandings, we can add the jams of our choice upon that bread. It's a very weird metaphorical speak to say at 11:30 in the morning in the UK, but I'll probably obviously miss breakfast. But the reality is that, isn't it? It's the Commonwealth should belong to everybody, and it has to be for the common person, not just for the wealthy. I have been at a number of conversations in the Commonwealth where we spoke about issues of climate change, where we have companies that are not part of the Commonwealth coming in trying to sell products. Is that where we are now? And that's another part of this as well. Is it about time that we move away from the consumer-based ideas that relate to these chambers and moving something further? And last point of correction, though, by the way, is with the network that we do, yes, we look at the humanness, we look at what is national identity, but we also look at how that has impact on trading relations. We have a look at how does that impact the way that our community invests into a nation. Do we have enough familiarity with the country in order for us to feel comfortable enough to say, great, that is a place I want to do business in and a place I can call home? Or are we still fiercely separated? And again, that has a huge, tremendous impact on trading flows as well.
Also, I mean, we also have to think, as we are a part of the civil society, of the NGO, of the voluntary sector, how we can promote and support and empower active citizenship within the Commonwealth through what can we do within the, as in form of community engagement, promoting friendship through culture, introduce each other's knowledge, share each other's knowledge, its wisdom, the wisdom of the civilizations that meet. We are now facing a huge, massive confluence of cultures. Our human nature, our human being is constantly evolving, and we are constantly in the need of developing community cohesion, because our social norms are not the social norms of the past anymore. So it is very, very important to understand, acknowledge the current need through this, because of this massive confluence of cultures, confluence of the highly diversified diversity, human diversity, and how we come to grips to that. And this is why I would say cultural diplomacy is now coming into more than ever in order to help the grassroots of our nations understand and develop cultural literacy in order to help us to live together in a fruitful way.
We're facing an existential crisis as communities. For the first time ever, we're coming across people that are dislocated culturally, linguistically from ourselves. And we're now living side by side. Human beings do not like change. We never have. And now all of a sudden that change is taking place. And so what we've seen alongside this idea of integration is that governments state it, they shout it out, but there's nothing practical there that tells people, what does that mean? What is that lived experience? How do you make that practically work? Now, the reality is, as human beings, despite our hate of change, there is a love of ingenuity. There is a love of shift, but we have to learn to do that.
Absolutely.
And so that's where I think is very powerful that we talk about cultural literacy or intercultural competence, because it means then we have the ability to not only think outside the box, but we can also have a different absorbed lived experience. Malta, I think, is a great example. I think is the example because it bridges Europe, that thing that we used to belong to, and the Commonwealth, which is his greater thing. And I think that's the beauty of Malta, because the only place in the world where you do fireworks during the day, and every time I go past a street in Valletta, I feel like I'm going to bump into Moses, because everything is so old and beautiful and archaic. But the same token, amongst this tapestry of culture, of tradition, you have got this new youth, you've got this new injection of people coming from around the world. Some that England has seen since the 60s and early 50s. And we also have to point through, England did battle, a fierce battle over that, because we saw riots, we saw anger, we saw hatred, we saw the Windrush issues as well. But Malta has the opportunity to be the love child of the Commonwealth and Europe by saying, here is how we do it sensibly, and we can showcase to the world that this is what can be achieved, and this is the economic opportunities behind that as well. So I think the work that you guys are doing from the Maltese perspective is vital, and I think it should have a stronger place within the Commonwealth paradigm than Britain does in itself.
Thank you very much. I think this is summing it very nicely up. I would like to round up our short discussion today with these thoughts, with these words, and maybe can we share a little question to the public to think, to the viewers to think, what would you like to invite anybody viewing this?
Conway, would you like to go first? I feel like I've hogged the mic from you, haven't I?
It's okay. Yeah, I mean, I think we go back to the kind of the lived experience idea. You know, I think, you know, if you think about from a Maltese perspective, if you know what is the Commonwealth, I think for most people the Commonwealth is occasionally, you know, we get a mention when a royal visits us, or occasionally we get a CHOGM meeting held here and stuff like that. I think, you know, how could we change the idea of the Commonwealth into a something practically beneficial for Malta in view of the challenges that we've got at the moment with this confluence of cultures?
Yeah. My question that I pose to the audience listening in, let's take for the Maltese side. Ask yourself if you're Maltese, British, Indian, whatever you are, your selectivism out of fate and luck rather than choice. Malta means something to you. Maltese identity means something to you. But do you mean anything to it? I think that there's a lot of openness when you start looking to answer that question, and then take it further. The Commonwealth may mean something to you, but do you mean anything to it? Because in your name, countries are born. In your name, groupings are born. But if you feel that you don't have any say within those groupings, if you don't feel like you have any say within those notions, then deeper questions have to be asked about why they were formed and who it benefits.
Thank you so very much, Conway, Rajan. It was a real pleasure. And I hope we inspire some thought, some more discussions to come. And I'm looking very much forward to our event in London on the 13th of May.